Hello there, my name is H.L.G. Wallace, and I am a fantasy writer and a poet, and this is Fantasy Talk, my space where I just kind of talk about all things fantasy and basically just ramble forever on like my favourite genre and just things that I enjoy. So this episode is probably on the one of the most niche things I'll probably talk about. So it's a short story called Mr. Death and the Redheaded Woman by Helen Eustace. And I first came across this in a collection of short stories called Out West by Jack Schaefer years ago. I've had it for so long that I honestly can't remember where I bought it. Because I absolutely love Westerns as well. And I haven't read many Western stories, but I've watched plenty of films. So yeah, I kind of bought this book not really expecting to come across anything fantasy based. And yeah, ever since I've read it, it's been one of my favorite short stories. And basically all the story is it's got it's very short. I think it's 10 pages. It's got 3 characters, which are Maud Applegate, the redheaded woman, Mr. Death, and Death's granny. And it's the premise of it is that Maud's kind of one true love, as she calls him, Billy Be Damn Bangtree, is dying from a bullet to the stomach, and not wanting just to cry her days away, Maud kind of gets her dance horse and she rides after Death. The story isn't perfect. I think there's stuff about it which I think have aged a bit. The language in it is I think there's a name for it, but the way Helen kind of Eustace wrote it is that it's not phonetic, but because everyone's it's in Texas and everyone's got an accent, instead of saying just Just, is jest, Jest, and I think she wrote Indians as Injun, Injun and all that kind of stuff. It's what it ends up becoming is just kind of a love story between Maud Applegate and Mr. Death, and how she's kind of on this quest to save the man that she loves, but then through doing that she gets to know Death, Mr. Death, and his granny, and they kind of hit it off. And basically midway, Maud kind of finds out that when Death sleeps, he sleep talks, and he will answer 3 questions truthfully, and then he'll wake up. And through that, she kind of finds out that she'll have to go around the world with him twice and then kiss him in order to save Billy Be Damn Bangtree. But there's also a really tender moment, and it's because I don't think this story is super serious. It was never kind of, I can't imagine it was there to be super philosophical, but it is still about death. And so kind of her second question is asking why her sister died, basically, her little sister, and or a baby sister even, and I think the third question is what Death does when he's lonely. And it's just it's just kind of a nice moment that acknowledges the kind of reality of the situation, and also I think it's something that if someone was in that situation, they'd be curious about the death of a loved one. So then, but from that she finds out she has to go around the world with him twice and kiss Mr. Death to save her one true love. But obviously, other than Mr. Death and all that kind of stuff, it's all very Western, and that's the thing. It's not super fantasy, really. But then again, I haven't really come across loads of stories that have melded these two genres together. And I think Stephen King's The Dark Tower has stuff about it. like where it's kind of fantasy western. But I don't know, like I just really like the way the world actually like that, like Helen Eustace makes in this, in that like the fantasy elements are quite subtle. Because there's a point where like Death's granny is talking to Maud, being like, "Oh, I can sense some magic in you," and I think the only magic that you actually hear about that Maud does is like she helps her brother with a test. She trips up like the preacher's wife, and then at the end she uses like some telekinesis to like put some, I think it's like tobacco juice from like spat tobacco like, into someone's eye. So yeah, so it's not loads. And then even Death itself, like it doesn't, there's not like a huge amount of, I don't know, displays of kind of magic. But I'd say like the most fantastical point is when they actually like go on the ride around the world. And I really like kind of the way it's described, in that I kind of feel like Death is trying to like impress Maud. Because even from the beginning, he's like calling her pretty and stuff. But then I like kind of Maud as a character, because in the story is also, they always goes on about like how she's a redheaded woman, she's got like a fiery temper and stuff. But there's a funny moment when like Maud first catches up to Death, and she's like begging him to save her one true love's life, and he kind of just starts laughing at her. And it's played off as like this kind of like not a meet cute, but like a kind of endearing moment. But basically she just cusses him out. And like to the point where she kind of makes Death himself like straighten his back up a bit. And so like there's kind of like the way that it's built up is really nice. But then also going around the world, like Death kind of, they ride up a mountain, and then like the clouds are described as like cattle, and they go in space, and Maud puts like stars in her hair. And but then when kind of they go get on with like Death's job, it's nice how they kind of describe Death's relationship with like people, because like the grieving people are like distraught, but then the people that are dying greet him as if he was like a friend. And it's just, I don't know, it's just, it's a nice depiction of Death, I think, in the sense that like he's not necessarily like a placid guy. Like there's a point where when he's sleeping and Maud and his granny are asking him questions, when it's talking about like what Maud could do to save her like one true love, he's like, I think it was like, for others I'd make them like give me an eye, and other people still I'd make like take 10 years off their life, but for her it would just be twice around the world and a kiss. And yeah, and it's one of those things where I don't know, like I don't think this is going to be a super long episode, because it's not a super long story really. But the end of it essentially is that they go around, Maud kisses Mr. Death, and it's way more tender than she expects it to be. But then she basically realises that Billy be damn Bangtree is just a bit of a dickhead really, like a womanizer. So when she does the telekinesis of the tobacco juice in someone's eyes, she does it into Billy's eye, and then rides off to Death, and then they kind of embrace each other and like finally end up together. But like the final lines are, it's like, oh, they lived a happy life together and they're together still, and then Maud would start like working with him in the like death game, if you will, and sometimes she would like sit down at the bottom of like children's beds and sing them lullabies. But it's, yeah, like I was saying, ever since I read this story, like the idea of just this kind of like this world that was created always fascinated me. And like it's just something that I feel like there'd be more kind of stories to it. But as far as I know, this is the only one she made. And apparently she had written a couple of novels, but I remember looking at one of them, and it was just like a crime thriller thing. But yeah, but like the other thing that always stuck with me is just this image of like Mr. Death and Maud Applegate kind of as like not like an elderly couple, like an older couple, where they always just have this kind of tenderness towards each other, like they're still like clearly in love. And I don't know, it's a very like sweet idea of like romance. And again, like it's a very interesting take on both the Western and the fantasy genre. Yeah, I don't know. Like I can't think of anything else I'd say about it. It's I mean, at its core, it's just a love story, but it's said in very weird ways. So yeah, so I think that's about it really. So that was all I can say about Mr. Death and the Redheaded Woman. I'm hoping to get more consistent with this and probably make like longer videos. But yeah, if you enjoyed it, kind of follow, like. You can find me on Substack under H.L.G. Wallace, and I'm on Instagram as Homegrown Universe, but I'm much more kind of active on Substack. So yeah, thanks for listening. Bye bye.